This is Ambition Today. Today we are joined by Matt Britton. He is the founder and CEO at Suzy, a consumer intelligence platform which is being touted as Siri for brands. This is Ambition Today.
These are the entrepreneurs, creators, investors, and builders who ambitiously change to the world. Explore the hardships and heroisms of everyday life while we reveal the key moments to leave behind a lasting legacy. This is Ambition Today with Kevin Siskar.
What's up, world? I am Kevin Siskar, and you are listening to Ambition Today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod in your favorite podcast app. We are everywhere: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Breaker, my new favorite podcast app, or our website, siskar.co. Really, whatever your favorite app is, you can use. Also, don't miss out on the show's back channel, the Ambition Today A-List, where we get exclusive bonus clips from our guests, such as the single greatest piece of advice our guests have ever received. So many great founders are already members. In case you missed it, last episode we talked to Adam Tishman. He is the co-founder at Helix Sleep, an innovative direct-to-consumer sleep brand aiming to change the way people sleep. But today I'm excited we are joined by Matt Britton. He is the founder and CEO at Suzy, a consumer intelligence platform being touted as Siri for brands. Matt, welcome to Ambition Today.
Thanks for having me.
Where are we today for the podcast listeners at home?
We are in Suzy's beautiful headquarters here in the Soho district of Manhattan.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love my props. My favorite thing is your desk up front. You have this lumber stacked firewood desk that looks amazing.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you for having me. Let's get right into it. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from the Philadelphia area. Grew up right in the south side of the suburbs in Philadelphia.
West Philadelphia, born and raised?
Yeah, my boy.
So what was life there like growing up? Were there any entrepreneurial influences from your childhood or back then?
I wouldn't say there were entrepreneurial influences, but there were definitely social influences. I grew up in a upper middle class suburbs outside of Philadelphia. However, there was another town kind of on the other side of the tracks that sort of all kind of coalesced at the same high school, and I spent more time there than in my more upscale suburb because I just connected more with those people. I liked the work ethic and the grind and the authenticity, which I think sometimes people of wealth it takes away from them. Yeah. And I think that was a big influence in my life for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm not from Philly, but that sounds super Philadelphian.
Yeah.
I feel like people think of Philly, they think of grit, and that's amazing that it stuck with you and rides with you today.
And the Eagles happened to win the Super Bowl. Put that in.
Congrats on that, by the way. That was amazing. So then you went to Boston University, public relations and advertising.
Yep.
I feel like it's almost sort of rare these days to see someone go to college and then actually do that field.
Yeah.
But you're still in it. You're in advertising. What attracted you to that early on? Why did you go into that over anything else?
So the way I got into BU is I got into this kind of entry-level 2-year portion called CGS, which a lot of people call crayons, glue, and scissors. And the reason why is it's like where the people who aren't the smartest kids actually get into BU, but actually a lot of the most successful people like Howard Stern, who graduated from BU, actually enter through there. Yeah. And the good thing about it is during those 2 years, it really gives you an opportunity to figure out what you really like. And for me, when I was a freshman, a couple of weeks in, I started promoting nightclubs. I met this guy who was like this cool nightclub promoter, and it was after a night at the bar, and he asked me if I wanted to hand out flyers, and I said sure, and I started handing out flyers after people were getting out for another party, and I just found I was good at it. I was good at kind of convincing people to go to an event. I connected with people. I worked hard at it, and that kind of started a whole career that I actually had built throughout my college career in being a nightlife promoter. Yeah. And because I did that in my early stages of college, it made me realize that advertising and marketing is an area I want to be into, which is why I went to school of communications for my junior and senior year.
Yeah, but even I like what you touched on that led you to advertising, but you're essentially selling.
You're selling.
You're selling people to go to this club, and so you're basically just cutting your teeth on that skill set, which is huge for founders.
Absolutely.
Road, right?
I mean, you're going up to somebody and trying to convince them to do something. And I think to me, I found I was persuasive and creative in doing so. Yeah. And that taught me enough of what I needed to know in terms of the direction I wanted to go into.
Nice. So I think it was a year after college, you co-founded the Magma Group.
Yeah.
a marketing services firm during the late 90s .com bubble.
Yeah.
Specifically internet marketing.
Yeah.
In the .com bubble.
Yeah.
What was that like?
So I wouldn't call it
story.
internet marketing. So what started to happen was I built a mini empire in Boston, sort of promoting nightclubs, and I was running 5 to 7 parties a week in Boston. And I stayed there after I graduated to continue to do it. And then what started to happen is some of the local businesses started to ask, can we sponsor your party? Can we put up a banner at your party or set up a table or get our logo on your flyers? And I said, sure. And I started to get this revenue from these smaller local businesses. And at the same time, what started to happen was we had this .com boom where companies like eBay and Lycos and Pets.com were all born. And all these companies were venture funded, and some of them were actually in the Boston area. And I started to see some of them promote on college campuses, and I reached out to Lycos, which ended up going public as one of the first search engines. And I said, do you want to sponsor my party? And they said, sure. And then they learned more about me, and they said, well, can we use all your other promoters? Because I built a network in Boston to promote Lycos. And I said, sure. And then they said, well, can you do it in other cities, other college campuses? And I said, sure. So basically what I did is I spun out an agency called the Magma Group, which actually came from the Austin Powers movie where they said liquid hot magma. And that's where I came up with the name Magma Group. I was like, oh, let's call it Magma. And I had a network of college students who basically promoted internet companies on campus, because during the .com boom, these internet companies were valued by the amount of registered users that they had. So what I had college reps do is walk around campus with clipboards, having kids fill out a username and a password with pen and paper, and then we data entered it into the site, and we got and the companies knew we were doing it. They didn't care, and we got basically a bounty for every kid that signed up. And then we would go to spring break and say, if you sign up for 8 websites, you'll get a free t-shirt. And we basically built a network, and we grew the business from 0 to 5 million in revenue in 2 years. But then what happened was there's something called accounts receivable, which I never really understood. Apparently, that's not always guaranteed to be paid. I didn't know that. No one teaches you that during college, but the .com bubble burst, and we were left with, over $1 million in receivables, and we never collected on it because a lot of those companies went under. And, so I basically had to get out. So I basically called a lot of agencies in New York. I found one called Ustream Media Networks, so essentially a sue debt, gave me a little signing bonus to move to New York, and that's how I kind of got out of Boston into New York and officially into the advertising business.
That's amazing, and I love today we're talking about Cambridge Analytica and privacy concerns, and I love that people are just pen and paper putting their passwords on clipboards and walking around. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. So the Magma Group's acquired by Ustream in
and acquired's funny. I mean, the reality is they saved us.
Yeah.
They took our debt, and it was almost an acqui-hire.
Yeah.
But it was a good way for us to save face. Our employees all got jobs, and it was definitely a learning lesson for sure. School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah. Well, I'll still throw a W in the win column for you. So then in 2002, you started Mr. Youth, which I think became MRY.
That's right.
You had 500 employees, known as one of the most prominent and successful social media marketing services firms. 2002 seems very early for social media, right? Facebook doesn't really come around.
It wasn't social media when we started.
Okay, got it. So tell us the story of Mr. Youth, how it became MRY, and how that began and grew.
Yeah, so I was working at Ustream, and I kind of became quickly like the young hot salesperson there, working at this company. It's the first time I had ever had a job, and we're actually working for another company. And one day, I remember all these guys in suits came in to Ustream, and I caught word that they were selling their business. And I was just thinking this is not me. I don't want somebody else dictating my path. I want to get out and do my own thing again. Yeah. And there were a couple clients who I was working with at the time who basically I had great relationships with. So I kind of pulled a Jerry Maguire moment, if you will, and I basically called my clients and I said, who's coming with me? And a couple clients, one of which is Red Bull, and a woman named Amy Taylor, who actually was back then the Southeast Regional Marketing Manager of Red Bull. Now she actually is the head of marketing globally at Red Bull. But at that time, she was one of the people who believed in me. And she basically said, I'll support you and give you a project when you go do your own thing. And that was all I needed. So I basically told Ustream, I'm leaving. I had a client in Red Bull. I serviced them out of my Upper West Side apartment. And basically what Mr. Youth was, I called it Mr. Youth because I wanted a name that was ownable. And a lot of people hated it at first. In fact, a lot of people said, well, any brand that targets women was never going to hire an agency called Mr. Youth, yet my two biggest clients in my first 2 years were Kimberly-Clark Kotex tampons and Victoria's Secret. So that wasn't the case. It just shows you can't listen to other people. When you Googled Mr. Youth, and I'll talk about Google because that was very critical to my success, but when you Googled it, nothing else came up. So I think having something that's ownable versus coming up with some acronym or something that sounds like something like Fusion that everyone else is using is super important. So we were basically, Mr. Youth, a company that helped big brands target teens and college students. And then the internet was just becoming a thing at that point, believe it or not, in 2002. And then in 2004, the company had grown. I finally had an office, and I had just launched a sizable program for Microsoft. And the story on how I got Microsoft was the phone rang. It was like 7:30 in the office, and on the caller ID, it said Microsoft. And I'm like, oh, it must be a cold caller. And like selling me software. And I picked it up, and they're like, oh, we want to target college students. And I'm like, oh, it just so happens I'm going to be in Seattle tomorrow. He's like, okay, great, let's set up a meeting. So I hung up the phone, I booked my flight to Seattle.
You weren't going to be in Seattle.
Yeah, I flew out there, and they ended up hiring us to build this network of 1,000 college student reps across the country. And early on, a couple of the students at Ivy League schools said, can we also promote Microsoft on Facebook? And I'm like, well, what's Facebook? They're like, it's blowing up on 20 college campuses. You really need to check it out. And basically, we ended up, as a part of that, integrating Facebook into our student rep software, becoming one of Facebook's first ever API partners. I actually sold some of Facebook's first ever ads to Mark and Eduardo back in 2004. And that after Facebook started to really take off on college campuses, which became social media with Twitter and other platforms, we slowly pivoted our business away from being just a youth marketing company to a social media marketing company, because I quickly learned that in the ad agency world, helping people do things is not as lucrative as helping people think. And having a seat at the table, because it gets you to more senior level people. You can charge for what you're thinking versus just what you're doing, which is less scalable. And I knew early on that for us to get a seat at the table, we need to own something bigger than a tactic of an audience. And we pivoted to becoming a social media marketing agency. And that's the story.
I think that last point is really interesting because, I used to work in ad tech. I worked for a company called Collective. Yep. And we were like the 7th largest ad network at the time. And it's so true. Things in media move. It's a weird, like, dinosaur sort of antiquated industry in one sense, but then also things move very fast.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What is the topic of every person in the industry 6 months, maybe it's bot traffic, 6 months later it's something else.
Yep.
And there's always someone's always trying to control the narrative, it feels like, in this industry.
That's right.
And it's like a battle for, like, mental power. I don't know how, but to your point, I think that's very true about ad tech, advertising, media in general.
Well, I mean, who funds it, right? Brand marketers. And brand marketers work at these big companies, and they're largely disconnected from actually what's going on, especially now where the decisions in the future are not made from the boardrooms, but they're made from the sidewalks. And brands are looking for partners who can come in and actually help, regardless of what they do. I mean, even platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn have deep relationships with brands. They're not just selling a product as a vendor. Yeah. And whoever gets closest to those decision makers is who's going to win. Yeah. And if you can be a thought leader and continue to evolve and see what's next, you're going to be a value to your clients and you're going to grow your business.
Yeah. So two other things I want to touch on from your story there. So one, I love that you made the lift easy, right? Like you didn't say, oh, maybe I could meet you next week. And you're like, no, I'll just be there tomorrow. I'm already going to be in town, right? You just inherently just made that leap. Like how can I make them giving me money as easy as possible for them, right? Yeah. I think that's a tip to you selling for all those years, right? That's important for founders.
Also opportunity. Like when opportunity strikes, you gotta go get it.
So,
no matter what.
How do you recognize? So, what for you? How do you recognize it? Right? Because I feel like that's a gut instinct people build over time.
Well, it was Microsoft. I mean, they were one of the richest, most powerful companies in the world, and I'm working out of a 2-person office, and they're calling and asking for an opportunity. How long would it take for me to cold call and get to somebody at Microsoft? Right. Years, right? Yeah. Versus here's somebody who's interested in my service already. I mean, jumping on a plane is a no-brainer. So anytime you have an opportunity like that, you just got to go after it because you don't know if it's going to come again.
For sure. And then the other thing you touched on is like, you were selling Facebook ads before really anyone, with Mark and Eduardo. So how important do you think it is for founders when you're trying to time like the cycle, right? And when you should be going to market with your product being too early versus, too late? Where do you think that like the ideal point is?
It all depends on what your business model, I guess, is. Right. I mean, if you're a service business, companies, like if you're an agency, a big brand will hire you to do something in VR right now so they can kind of win an award at Cannes Lion, right? So you can make money off it. If you're building a VR product right now, well, you're too early and you're going to have to be funded, in a dramatically large way for you to be able to survive, the amount of time. Otherwise, you will be too early. Yeah. So I think it really depends on what your business model is. There are some instances where building a business model is okay if you're too early, and in others, like in the case of, streaming video, so many great business models went under because they were too early. Although some could say Mark Cuban was too early and it worked out well for him. So you really never know. Yeah. You have to be the best at what you do, though, I think, no matter if you're early or late, to be able to win.
Yeah, I think that's great. So then MRY was acquired by LBI in 2011, right? Mm-hmm. Very cool. Awesome. Let's take a quick break. We're here with Matt Britton, and we are going to be talking about his new company, Suzy, right after the break.
This is Ambition Today.
If you are enjoying this episode of Ambition Today, then please leave us a review in the Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever podcast store you use. If you don't know how to do that, you can visit syscar.co/review, and I will show you in 3 quick steps. Thank you so much for the help. And Ambition Today is happy to partner with Founder Institute, the world's premier launch stage startup accelerator. The Founder Institute has graduated over 2,500 technology companies across 6 continents, and we've learned a ton. And we've used that data to compile the best personality traits of successful founders, such as fluid intelligence, openness, conscientiousness, and more. If you think you have entrepreneurial DNA, then find out what it takes at fi.co/join/ambition today. And Audible. Visit audibletrial.com/ambition today to download and keep any audiobook for free. The one audiobook we're just talking about VR with Matt, I would highly recommend is Ready Player One. Amazing book, really changed the way I thought about virtual reality in the future. If you want to get your free copy, visit audibletrial.com/ambition today to download and listen for free. And now back to this episode of Ambition Today.
Visit Ambition Today online at syscar.co and follow the show on social media at Ambition Today.
Welcome back. We're here with Matt Britton talking about his journey up through the media world so far. And now, Matt, I want to ask you about your new company, Suzy.
Yep.
Tell us about Suzy, why you started, the origin story there.
Sure. So Suzy came from a company called CrowdTap, which actually came from MRY.
Okay.
So when I was at MRY, as I mentioned earlier, we were building these student rep networks. We had built a software to manage and measure the student reps called CrowdTap that we ended up spinning out. I put in a different CEO, helped the company raise its first round. That company then went off into its own path, hired its own employees. And then after I sold the agency, I worked at the acquirer, actually the acquirer's acquirer, Publicis Group, for a couple of years. And then when my earnout ended, I left and I rejoined CrowdTap as CEO at the beginning of 2016. When I rejoined CrowdTap, I saw that the business models needed reinvention. It was in the influencer marketing space at that point, and I just think the influencer marketing space had evolved dramatically, but I saw a tremendous business opportunity out of leveraging the 1 million members that CrowdTap had accumulated over the years for something different than content creation, which was telling us what they feel and think about things. And that's where Suzy came about. So we essentially took those million members, we created a new technology that allows brands to ask consumers questions in a variety of different formats and actually get answers back during the same meeting that they're in. So you could put up a picture of a product and say, describe this product in 3 words, and you have a word cloud starting to appeal right in front of your eyes, actually, while you're at the meeting. Yeah. But not just from all million people, but from people who are Walmart shoppers or people who maybe are already your customers, because you can splice and dice the audience.
So it's like a real-time digital focus group.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Focus group, our research tool, and we have a lot of other extensions to the business as well. And it's been incredibly successful. Now we have 75 enterprise customers using it. Companies like Netflix and Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson are using it to fuel their innovation, their product marketing decisions, testing new product ideas. So it's been a while.
It's very cool because you've basically taken the nodes of the people that drive culture and society and you curate them, and then also you are an agency as well, right? So you can help then.
Well, we're not an agency.
Okay.
Suzy is not an agency.
Got it.
That's a big distinction. So Suzy is.
So for the audience that isn't maybe media world, right? Can you just break out the difference between agency, software company?
Yeah, I mean, an agency is a service, right? You exist to essentially support your clients. If your clients say jump, you say how high. If they say build an app, you build an app for them. You really exist to make those brands better. You're an agent of them. A software company, we are our own client. client. We're our own product company. We build a product and we sell the ability for other companies to access that product. And those are completely different in a lot of ways. If you are running an agency and your biggest client calls you and, say, this has actually happened to me. My biggest client, which was like 80% of my business at one point, the CMO left for another company. And in 2 years, that company went from $20 million of revenue to zero. We were doing a great job, but it was just based on a relationship. The new CMO came in and had their own relationships. So agency world is not a meritocracy. It's basically very political. It's based upon relationships. Now, the good work does rise to the top, but there's a lot of other things. And if you're running a product or a software company, no one knows who really cares at the end of the day who's behind it. The best product wins, which is good and bad. I mean, it's good in that, if you create a great product, you're going to win. It's bad in that everything is rested on that product. And I can't personally overcompensate for the product. Like if we didn't have great people working at the agency, I'm a great salesperson. I know I can get the company to a certain level just on my own shoulders. Software business isn't like that. I have to scale, hire great people, come up with a great product and execute. I actually prefer the software business. I think it's a lot more scalable. And, I've actually never been so excited in my career as I am today about what we're building here at Suzy.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I think, this is a shift that I'm seeing too. When I was at Collective, I saw it, right? Like we had a good CEO, he could sell, and then I watched over the years is that started to not matter anymore.
Yeah.
And everyone's going programmatic and what is our tech? And then, and it used to be, our CEO would go into Time Warner, sell a $100 million contract, and then we'd build it. Like that just didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like you had to have a good product up front.
Yeah.
So where is Suzy today? How has it grown?
So we have 75 enterprise customers. We're a venture funded business. We have great investors. Our lead investor is a Foundry Group out of Boulder, Colorado.
Great.
To date, the company's raised about $15 million, but that includes all the money raised on CrowdTap. Most of that was actually raised on CrowdTap. And we are really scaling. We think we're onto something. Really, what we're trying to solve for is that 99% of decisions made in business have no data behind it. There are those big decisions that are used, like the Nielsen's of the world and the Ipsos studies, et cetera, which take 30 to, in some cases, 90 days to come up with a study to support a decision. But every little decision that's made, do we want the red product or the blue product? Do consumers like Kanye or Jay-Z, like whatever it may be? So much that's just guessed.
And it depends on the week at this point.
The week depends on the week. So time
the
is
day.
Right. So being able to have data to back decisions at the speed of culture. Like with Suzy, you can launch a question at the beginning of a meeting, and before the meeting's over, you'll have enough answers to help validate the decision that you're trying to plan for. So the reason we called it Suzy is it's essentially another person that's sitting at your table, except it's the voice of a million consumers encapsulated into Suzy.
Yeah, this sounds actually like an amazing product for startups. I mean, I don't know how early people typically get involved, but it sounds like a really good when you're building out your MVP, testing, trying to find product market fit.
So right now we're just serving the enterprise, but we're actually in the back half of this year rolling out a SMB product that's self-service that allows smaller companies.
You let me know. I got like 3,000 companies that want to use.
Amazing.
That
for sure.
Great. So I feel a lot of companies now are actually just trying out influencers. Clout, but also Clout shut down last month. Rest in peace. We all used to check our Clout scores. So how do you see this influencer space evolving over the next 5 years?
I think it's going to come full circle. I think the days of brands doing one-night stands are going to end soon. You look at brand safety issues.
So what do you mean by that?
It means that in the past, Kim Kardashian would be paid $400,000 to post a product once, and that would be it, right? And I think that the problem with that is that you look at what happened with, Logan Paul, for example, and, you really never know, who that person is and what their background is. You don't know how their content's going to be juxtaposed or what they're doing in the future. And it's also very cumbersome for companies to manage hundreds and hundreds of influencers. It sounds great in theory, but once you try to push things through big companies' legal departments, it actually never happens. Mm-hmm. And I think also the other thing that's happening is that Facebook and the social platforms are now throttling these kind of branded posts. So if you're an influencer and you post something with a brand, you actually have to put on your post, it's a paid partnership with Volvo, right? And when you do that, the algorithm's actually suppressing it because Facebook wants, if it's going to be shown, Facebook wants to be paid.
They want to go through
because there was this marketplace that was being created that Facebook was not being a part of, which is a brand would make a decision: do I spend $3 million on Facebook, or do I spend $3 million with influencers who are going to share on Facebook? And they got locked out of the equation. So now, if it's pay to play, Now it's basically creating less high quality content you're going to put money behind, which is basically no different than television. So I think you're going to find the LeBron James of the world, and the Kim Kardashians and the Justin Biebers and the big celebrities. They're going to be the ones that are going to be getting the dollars, and it's going to come full circle, where it's going to be the big superstars that are going to get those branded entertainment dollars, and they are the influencers. And I think that long tail,
like the Instagram people and maybe a few 100,000.
It's all that was a moment in time. Yeah. It was like if you think about it, when Facebook first started having branded pages, brands actually were able to reach all of their followers by post. So if Coke had 40 million followers and they posted something on Facebook, 40 million people would see it. Now 400,000 people see it because Facebook says, whoa, we need to get paid if you're going to reach your own audience. Well, now the same thing's happening with influencer marketing, right? So it's basically now pay to play. And in a world of pay to play, companies are only going to spend on the big, high produced pieces of creative, and they're only going to do that with big celebrities who are going to have widespread appeal. Yeah. So that's why we pivoted CrowdTap, and I think that space is changing dramatically. Now, if you're a great fly fisher and you're a company that sells fly fishing poles and you've built an audience of fly fishers, you're going to be able to monetize that audience because it's super niche. But when you talk about all these Instagram models and things like that who are generalists, I think that's all going to go away.
Yeah.
I think that's
a good point between generalists and going niche.
For sure.
Yeah. So you also gave a presentation I recently saw. It's on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out, on millennials, A to Z, right?
Yeah.
You also wrote the book, Youth Nation.
Yep.
And so you've been doing a lot of work on what it means to be a millennial.
Uh-huh.
And so in it you had C for crowdfunding. This was one of the things you had in it. And one of the keys I think you were highlighting is like the democratization of investing, right?
Of opportunity too.
Yeah, of the opportunity to invest, right? And so on that trend...
Well, I think it's democratization of opportunity in general.
Got it.
Because in the past, if you didn't have, big picture contacts, right? If you didn't have high profile people that had big dollars, you never get an idea funded.
Yeah.
So why it democratizes the opportunity is if you really have a great idea and you put it out on Kickstarter and enough people see it, you actually can crowdfund that in little pieces, and you actually never need to get to the executive level to get something funded. And that's how it democratizes opportunity.
All right, I like that. But on that trend, I know Kevin Durant invested in your company.
Yep.
And how do you see more people outside the traditional business world getting involved? Just like you said, the democratization of opportunity. That's obviously going to keep growing, you feel? And do you feel that there will be, how will platforms or services enable that growth to take it to the next level?
So, people are the new networks, right? So if you want to get a message out right now to tens of millions of people, you wouldn't call, Viacom or News Corp to get a message out. You would call the Kevin Durants of the world and have them post it because they have such a large audience. These superstars have such power and they realize their power and they are leveraging it. Kevin Durant has just a right to be successful in the media world as you or I do. Just because he's good at basketball shouldn't preclude him from doing so. So I think now they actually have much more opportunity to spread their wings. And I think you're seeing athletes and actors and people in all different walks of life who have basically been able to build prominence come in and diversify what they're doing. Especially for professional athletes who are going to retire, besides Tom Brady, most of them retire in their late 30s, and what are they going to do for the rest of their life? Right. And you heard in the past about so many athletes going bankrupt after they retired. Well, I think good on a lot of these athletes to really try to diversify and get into new things that they're interested in.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the topic of investing, you yourself invest in startups. You have Matt Britton Ventures. Mm-hmm. So I have two questions here on the investment front. First, because there's this debate in Silicon Valley between being an operator or investor or like a trader or analytic investor.
Yep.
How has being an operator, a founder, helped you as an investor? Has it been an advantage or disadvantage in your mind?
So I actually don't think I'm a good investor. I've actually come to believe that over time. Yeah. So I've actually stopped doing most seed investments.
Okay.
Because I think being an operator and being an investor are two different things. And I get so excited about ideas and so excited about people that sometimes that blinds me from a lot of the fundamentals that good investors actually look at. Mm-hmm. And just like how investors can't, my VC investors can't necessarily come in here and do what I do as a CEO.
Yeah.
I think that I learned early on that it's probably not what I'm best at and it's not a great use of my time. Yeah. So I still do it from time to time with people who I have relationships with, who I've known for a long time and I believe in. But for the most part, it's something that I think was very hot for a while. Everyone wants to invest in a lot of things. But now if you believe in your company like I do, if I have an extra 200 grand to throw around, I'm buying into my next round myself in my own company.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I'm putting, instead of giving other people money, which I can't control, I believe in my company, and I'm actually trying to buy as much of my company stock as I can.
Nice. So that brings me to my second question. How has your time sitting on the other side of the table as an investor now helped you as a founder? Has it not?
I can't point to a specific way how it's helped me. It's got me exposed to other business models. I invested in Facebook pre-IPO, and I've known those guys for a while. So just seeing their focus on talent and their bravado in terms of what they were trying to achieve. So being able to see the other side, under the hood of companies as an investor, and seeing how they run their finances and the mistakes that they make, I guess, has helped me. It's probably the best way to be able to contextualize it.
Well, if you got on Facebook pre-IPO, I don't see how you could be a bad investor, but...
That was luck. That was luck.
Yeah, well, it's all luck.
And I didn't invest nearly enough.
So it's time for the Ambition Today question of the day. If you have an Ambition Today question, go to our website, submit it for future episodes. Matt, today's question is, you've started several companies over the years. What does being a serial entrepreneur mean to you? Is it a skill set, something you learn, or is it a mindset, something you kind of were born into? What do you think is happening here?
I think it's
with people like you.
I think it's a mindset, because I don't necessarily, there are a lot of brilliant people that work for all different businesses at the corporate level and are incredibly successful. I think for me, it's really the mindset of being a risk taker. And I think for me, I need the skin in the game that exists as an entrepreneur. So when I was working at a big company, I was well paid and well taken care of. But if my company did $10 million more in EBITDA during a year, I would get a small bonus. And if I did $10 million less, my pay would be the same. Yeah. Right. And to me, that wasn't enough to drive me every morning. Where here, if I screw up, like, the whole company falls down. And if I crush it, I'm going to build a massive company. And it's going to be career defining. Yeah. And to me, those swings and outcomes attached to what I do every day is really what I need to make me care. And I think that's the big, and other people don't need that. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, because it has a lot, as being an entrepreneur has a lot of collateral damage to your personal life and to your health and to psychological health. I mean, it's not easy, right? Yeah. But it's what I've chosen, and it's just how my mind is, I guess, manufactured. And I think that it really is a mindset sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I do think it's a mindset as well. So thank you. That's a great answer. All right. Well, we are at the back here. So if you're still listening, be sure to join the Ambition Today A-list to hear Matt's single greatest piece of advice he's ever received. You can visit syscar.co/A-list to join today. As always, the show notes, everything we talked about, including links to everything we talked about, will be up on our website. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. And, Matt, thank you for being here today. Is there anything or anywhere people should go to check out? Anything you want to plug? Blog, Twitter?
So if you want to learn more about me, you can go to mattbritton.com, mattbritton.com, as all my YouTube videos, upcoming speaking events, etc. And then if you want to learn more about Suzy, go to asksuzy.com. And you can learn more about what we're building. We're actually about to rebrand as Suzy.com. We snagged that URL.
Nice. So. That's awesome. Well, stay curious, everyone, and I will see you on the next episode of Ambition Today.
Thanks for listening to Ambition Today. Be sure to visit syscar.co to get all the information from this episode and more great content. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.